class on stress, from stress to strength. And boy, if this is an important topic, it's just amazing. The more I study about this, and hopefully everybody can hear me properly, hear me well. But the more I study about this, the more I see just how important it is for us to understand the things that can cause stress, and just what we need to do to keep ourselves from it. And this picture will be very familiar to many of you here. Stress is not just about your emotions, but everything from biological agents to bacteria to heavy metals to chemicals can all work on your body, the cells of your body. And we're going to look into that in greater detail, but they all work on your body to wreak havoc, to change the way your cells work in a way that they were not meant to work, and just basically it's a domino effect, can lead from one thing to the other, and eventually you have disease, be it autoimmune disease, be it immune deficiency disease like cancers, be it diabetes. A lot of these things come from the stress, toxins of any kind on our body cells. So it is so important. And really, we're going to get into this in the future, later on in the webinar, but really, heavy metals can actually cause emotional stress. Radiation, believe it or not, can actually affect brain cells and endocrine cells to make it seem like you have emotional stress. So when we talk about compartmentalizing these things, it's just for people to understand and know what to do in specific situations. But really, these are all connected, and the end result is always uniform. The stress is always results in maybe the production of certain hormones, to certain chemicals in the body. Your body just has an automatic response to stress. It doesn't matter what the source is. And we're going to talk about that some more. How are we doing, Sherry?
We're doing good.
Okay, good. In our last class, we mentioned that 90% of all diseases caused or influenced by stress. So that makes it very, 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 very important. And I have over here what I call the 4 bases for disease and death. If you think about it, when it comes right down to it, free radical damage or oxidative stress, inflammation, insulin resistance is becoming a bigger and bigger marker for stress, and finally the big O, obesity. These 4 actually, especially the top 3, play an underlying factor in the process of disease and death. And if we can find a way to control, especially those top 2, the top 2, especially free radical damage, and in our class on antioxidants, we show that free radical damage, if anything, is the #1 cause for the gradual deterioration that we see as we age. And it happens to everybody. I'm experiencing it now myself. I can't do the things I used to do 10 years ago. So it's free radical damage of specifically the mitochondria in the cells. Inflammation is the next thing. We now know that inflammation is an underlying factor in many diseases, including heart disease, cancers, strokes. Your body's inflammation response, especially in this country, people are more prone to have hyper-inflammatory responses as opposed to a balance. And Dr. Marvin did an excellent job on fatty acids and what they can do to minimize inflammation. Fatty acids, specifically omega-3 fatty acids, we know omega-6s cause inflammation, and we have much more omega-6s in our diets than we do omega-3s, which hinder inflammation. There should be a balance of about 2 to 1. Omega-6s 2 to omega-3s 1. But right now in this country we have an over 20. It's like omega-6s to omega-3s are 20 to 1, which is really, really bad. Sets you up for major inflammation. And of course, insulin resistance, we talked about that in our class on fat loss, and we show how as you age and as you're exposed to more and more toxins, insulin resistance increases. Bottom line, where does stress come in? Stress has a way of accelerating all 4 of what you see on the screen. Stress increases free radical damage. It increases inflammation. It increases insulin resistance. And of course, it increases obesity. And we're going to talk about some of the mechanisms for that. Okay, this is from the last class. A lot of people are overweight today, 65%.
Mm.
Let's talk about stress. And we did, yep.
Can I ask you a question about the obesity? Does stress cause obesity because it actually changes your metabolism, or because when people are stressed, they tend to eat more?
Good question. It's actually both. One causes the other. It's like a vicious cycle. Where does it start? Chicken or the egg question. That's tough to answer. But yes, stress, because stress has a way of dampening your cell's ability to function. And we're going to see that. Stress has a way of dampening whatever cells in your body, be they in nerve cells or endocrine cells or heart cells. Stress has a dampening effect. What happens when you have a dampening effect is that your body is not able to metabolize quickly, and therefore it's not able to get rid of toxins as quickly as it should. What we know is that when your body begins to accumulate toxins and it's not able to get rid of it, the next best thing your body does is to hide the toxins away somewhere. And where's that?
In fat.
Exactly, in fat and in bones. And so the body kind of like creates a cushion, a fatty cushion around the toxins to keep your body from being affected by it. And so the more stress you have, the more toxins you accumulate in your body, and the less your body works like it should, and therefore the more fat that you accumulate in your body. And of course, when you're stressed, you tend to eat a lot more, and also you tend to eat unhealthily. You tend to go for more for the junk food and the sweet things that can give you a quick high or just make you feel better. So does that answer the question?
Yes, thank you.
Sure thing. Now think about this, folks. Anything that threatens to upset your body's delicate internal balance can lead to stress. Now, when you think about that statement, it really opens it up to a lot of things that can do this. Because bottom line is that your body is always striving to reach a balance. It's always striving to make sure that you're working, or at least your key functions are working well. And so even if you're doing some bad things to your body is going to readjust and bring yourself into balance to compensate for those bad things. So in other words, if you're used to drinking like 3 bottles of beer a day, for instance, and that helps you get up in the morning, if all of a sudden you go cold turkey and decide not to do it, what's going to happen? You're going to be stressed because your body has been used to having that alcohol in its system. Your body has been used to working that way with that alcohol in its system. Same thing with drugs, illegal drugs. People can't even function without the illegal drugs, and because it gives them a high and helps their bodies function. Their bodies are used to it. The same thing with nutritional supplements. I for one, I use I was counting this morning. I use about 7 to 8 different nutritional supplements. Sherry uses like 20 different nutritional supplements. She's a junkie. But if I decided to go cold turkey, I would be stressed too, because my body is used to that. And that goes also to social interactions. If you're a very happy-go-lucky person and you like having people around you, and all of a sudden you're placed in solitary confinement, well, you're going to be stressed too. The same thing if you're used to being alone, and then all of a sudden you're exposed to, you don't have your own space again, and people just rush you, and everybody's in your face. Well, you're going to be stressed too. So when you're thinking about stress, don't think about it in just a very narrow view, but think about anything that threatens to upset what you're used to. And again, the definitions can go a long way from there. Bottom line is that we were designed to function at our best only when certain basic needs are fulfilled. And we're just going to go through a few of them. Basically, they can all be divided into 3 main parts, because our body can be divided into 3 main parts. And I use the word divided loosely, where all 3 parts of us are extremely intricately interconnected. Of course, the physical part, the mental part, and of course the spiritual part. I put it in this order because the term is survival needs. Usually we always start with the spiritual first because that is the most important. But you're going to see why I say I'm putting the physical part, because I'm talking about how to live on survival, for you to exist on this earth. The physical, for instance, you can't have, there's no way you can live without oxygen. So, or water, or sunlight, or nutrition, or rest, or to some extent exercise, movement. Your body has to move. We have to move. The minute, if there's one secret to life, folks, it is movement. Immune cells have to move. Your body, your cells, even within the cells, activity is always going on. Movement is always going on. When movement stops, you're dead. Of course, adequate shelter and protection are very, very important. These are the basic needs. Again, we use nutrition loosely because if you're to do it right, you have to have at least 7 or 8 specific nutrient groups for your health. Social and emotional needs: a happy, peaceful mind, connection with others. In our last class, we spoke about how there's this book called Loneliness, and they're now beginning to find out that people who are lonely show increased levels of stress hormones and chemicals in their bodies because of that fact that we were designed to have connection with others. And I'm going to show you the book later on. Engagement in meaningful activities, use of one's skills and talents. Oh boy, is that important. We all have specific skills, some people call them specific intelligences, whether it's intelligences of the mind or the body. Whatever it is, we all have ability to do something well. And if we're prevented from doing that, or if we're frustrated, especially as we grow older, if we're frustrated or we're kept from doing those things that we most naturally can do, well, we will be stressed. And of course, the level of financial security, a certain level. There's research out there. There is a very popular research that was done in Britain called the Whitehall Study, and they examined civil service people of different levels in the government organization, and they found out that the people who are of the lowest levels in the socioeconomic status, they found that they had the highest levels of stress hormones in their bodies.
Did you say Whitehall?
Whitehall Study, yeah. White, W-H-I-T-E, Hall, H-A-L-L. I think it's all one word. And as they rose, as the socioeconomic status rose, the researchers could actually see that the levels of stress hormones decreased with increase in financial status. So it's interesting, very, very interesting. It's something that goes on inside of us that many of us are not even aware of. Of course, spiritual needs. The 3 things that are common to all of us, doesn't matter what your religion or your background is, the 3 things are, of course, we are geared, we are designed to believe in something bigger, or someone bigger than oneself. That is just a fact. Now, some people attribute that need to God. Other people that something bigger is a cause, or it's a society, a special society, a secret society, or the Great Science Society, or even the Army or the Marines or the Navy. There's that thing about something being connected to something bigger or someone bigger than oneself. And when people are connected, when they feel that sense of connection, to some extent, their spiritual needs are taken care of. And of course, the third one is that your life, doing something and being involved and knowing that your life has a meaning, that really keeps one grounded and keeps one alive and living for a much longer period. We showed the quote from Viktor Frankl, who was a Nazi survivor from the concentration camps, and he was also a psychiatrist. And he wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning. And his conclusion was that we are designed, we must have a meaning for us to live and for us to have any meaningful life, for us to be healthy. So those are the 3, folks. Those are the 3 main aspects, and of course there are several things that go into spiritual, mental, and physical health.
And I'll put a plug in for the future. One of these days we're going to do a webinar or or some kind of a training on how to even find that purpose if you don't know what it is.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that's probably one of my greatest passions, to help people understand that, because I have a personal experience with that. I searched for years and years and years, and I know the frustrations I went through just trying to find out what I was put on this earth for. And I tell you, all these kids, especially these younger kids now, and it's worse for them because they have absolutely no clue with all the different things just jostling for their attention, from internet to TV to video games to all kinds of stuff. I mean, they're just confused. Most of them are just growing up confused. And so if there's one thing that we need, whether young or old, is to have a sense of bearing, a sense of this is what I am, this is what I am, and this is who I am, this is where I'm going to. That really helps to provide for your financial needs, for your friendship needs, for your intelligence needs. I mean, it just helps, it just covers everything for you. So very, very important.
Yep.
Stress, therefore, occurs either when these needs are not fulfilled adequately enough, or exposure to toxins overwhelms our body's ability to compensate or cope. So it's one thing, either it's not fulfilled, those needs aren't fulfilled as they should be, or there's sudden exposure to toxins. And let's just look at a few of them. Again, the general view is that there's about 5 different categories. And really, I like us always to focus on the categories that mostly affect what we call the central governing system, our mind, our emotions, which in turn have a huge effect on our nervous system, and which in turn affect our endocrine system, which in turn affects our immune system. If we can get these right, then hopefully the other 9 systems will be taken care of. So let's just look at a few of them. We call it PNI, psychoneuroimmunology. That's what it stands for. Psycho, of course, means the mind, neuro, the brain, the nervous system, and the endocrine system, and I, of course, is the immune system. So here are the top toxins that actually affect this main system. And dioxins right down there, major, major problem. We're going to have Rick Deitch come over again to do a webinar for us on detoxification. So he's going to hopefully talk about how these toxins affect our systems. In our talk on the brain and the human brain, the master control system, we went through a whole list of the toxins that will affect the brain. Now, why is this important? Because the brain is, again, like I said, the brain is the master control system. And the brain secretes chemicals, the brain secretes hormones, secretes neurotransmitters which control the endocrine system and the immune system. If the brain isn't functioning properly, the brain isn't getting what it needs to get, well, you can be sure that no other system in your body is getting what it needs to get, because your brain takes at least the highest priority goes to the brain and to the heart. And if those two are not taken care of, well, it's just like if mama isn't happy, no one is happy. Very, very important. And right over here, you see caffeine, coffee. You'll find that coffee can really do a lot of stimulation in the brain cells. I take a special kind of coffee that has some mushrooms in it. It's a special mushroom in it that really helps to. They call it healthy coffee, but it's a huge difference. There's a huge difference between coffee, the regular Starbucks coffee, and what I take. So I do get the coffee kick, but it's a more sustained kick. It's not just the spikes that we have, and before you know it, you feel down again. And that never happens to me. So if you can get the notes or the handouts, please get them, because there's so much to talk about in all these. These are the endocrine system toxins. Hormonally disruptive foods with high trans fat, high fructose corn syrup is present everywhere, in practically everything, folks. And so does that mean we should stop taking practically everything? Well, of course not. I think the most important thing is one, for you to be aware of it, and 2, for you to know what to do to help protect your endocrine system and your nervous system, to strengthen them more or less, so that the effect of these substances will be minimal as much as possible. All right, so bottom line is what we're trying to say is that whatever affects the nervous system, the endocrine system, the immune system, and the other cells in your body will eventually translate to stress. Like we said, whatever it is that threatens to offset the balance translates to stress. And your body has a uniform response to stress, be it emotional stress or be it stress from toxins. We're going to focus primarily on emotional stress because obviously that's what people are thinking about when we advertise this. When people are stressed out, there are quite a couple of things that happen in general. This is what we see from outside, an objective perspective. We're going to look at exactly what happens in the body and try and explain that. But on the surface, people who are stressed out, you can recognize them by the fact that they eat more, they have more belly fat, they exercise less, they're constantly tired, they can't relax enough, and they have obviously more heart attacks, depression, colds, and engage in less stress. Remember, less sex, excuse me. Remember, your stress dampens your body's ability to function properly, and so these things are expected to happen. All right, how does stress affect the cells? Well, let's look at that. Bottom line is that whatever affects the human being, that's the human being over there, affects the cell, and vice versa. And so for us to truly understand how to take care of our bodies, we must understand how to take care of our cells. And in this book called The Cortisol Connection, what this man, Sean Talbot, brought out, in my opinion, he did an excellent job about it, was that what he found out, what he brought out was that whenever there's stress, or for whatever reason there's stress, what happens is that cortisol, which is the major stress hormone in the body, is increased. At the same time, he also found out that the hormone called testosterone is diminished. Now, testosterone is obviously it's not just a man thing; it's present in males and as well as females. And they found out testosterone is responsible for giving you drive, for helping you. It helps you be more competitive. It also helps to improve muscle bulk in the body, whether female or male muscle bulk. They found out that there's a inverse relationship between cortisol and testosterone. So the less testosterone in your body, the more there is cortisol. And the more cortisol, there's less testosterone. So they found this one-to-one correlation, well, inverse correlation between the two. Let's just see a few of these things here. Let's look at why cortisol does what it does. Now, hormones, and we went into detail about this in the endocrine system, but hormones can act in three ways. Either they act on the surface of the cell through these are the glyconutrients, these bluish things. Actually, glyconutrients are also carbohydrates. Or the hormones, these are mostly peptide hormones or protein hormones, act on the cell membrane itself to change the way the cell membrane works. And in our class on the human brain, we talked about how the cell membrane is actually the brain of the cell. So hormones work on this red part. But there are certain classes of hormones called the steroid hormones that act not here, but really on the nucleus itself. They actually affect the genes within the nucleus. And that is what cortisol specifically is, one of those steroid hormones that act on the nucleus. Now, the other characteristic about this is that though the hormones that work on the surface act a lot quicker and their effects are a lot more transient, the hormones that act on the nucleus take a little longer to act, but their activity stays for a while. And that's going to come into play. You're going to understand why that is important when you come to look at the human brain. Remember, cortisol is the stress hormone. Cortisol is just meant to have a transient, to be in the blood for a little period and then to go back. But once the cortisol, and this happens in chronic stress, once cortisol is significantly elevated over a long period of time, it begins to act against the body. Instead of just preparing you for flight or fight, for the flight or fight response, the cortisol actually begins to cause significant damage to certain parts of your body. And one of those parts is this place called the hippocampus. The hippocampus is a part of your brain that is responsible for memory. It is also the part of the brain that creates new brain cells. It has stem cells in that part called the hippocampus. So think about it. Memory and brain rejuvenation. Cortisol, excess cortisol over a long period of time damages this particular part.
Wow. And then having memory damage, that's going to create more stress.
Exactly. When memory is damaged, it creates more stress. Exactly.
Is that damage permanent, or after you reduce stress and do other positive things, can that rejuvenate and repair, or is that damage permanent?
My personal opinion is that nothing is irreversible. However, there are some things that are extremely difficult to turn around. Let me give you an example. There are two main things that they have found out, two main causes of stress, two main types of stress that they found out can cause, they call it irreversible damage to the hippocampus because they have not seen anybody truly recover from it. The two are post-traumatic stress disorders, as in the ones we see from Vietnam War veterans and other war veterans. That could also happen in kids who have been violently molested in childhood. That can carry on to later life, or even rape victims. It just makes me feel terrible just thinking about it. But also in chronic depression that has lasted over a long period of time can actually cause damage to the hippocampus. And again, the mechanism is that it is elevated cortisol levels that causes that. Okay?
Thank you.
Sure. They're actually finding out that the immune cells, when exposed to elevated levels of cortisol, it reduces their ability to function because, again, cortisol acts on the nucleus, it acts on the genes. And researchers have found out that certain transcriptase enzymes are adversely affected. You don't even know what that means, but they are adversely affected inside the immune cells, and therefore they cause the immune cells to malfunction, causing them to be either depressed or hyperactive, as in the case of autoimmune disorders. And the mechanism for how that happens, they're not quite sure, but they just know that it works bad, it doesn't work well. And here's again the quote that we had in the first class. Chronic stress halts the body's natural DNA repair system, which can potentially lead to the development of cancers. Now remember, the immune system is your number one defense against bugs, viruses, and cancer cells. So if your immune system is depressed, well, it opens you up to all these other things. So you can also understand why we say, and they found out that stress affects your thinking, your IQ, your emotions, your judgments, your ability to make decisions, your ability to live a healthy lifestyle, your ability to exercise. It affects all 12 systems, including the immune, the digestive, and cardiovascular systems. And here we have a list of all the different systems. If you remember when I was talking about stress, when the chiropractor, I mentioned in the last class that I was going through a very, very stressful period. And when the chiropractor did an X-ray of my neck, found out that, without her knowing who I was or even talking to me at all, she was asking me if I was stressed, if I was depressed, for any reason. And because just by looking at the X-ray, the way the muscles were shaped, the way the muscles were positioned, the way the spine was positioned, she knew from that this was the X-ray of someone who was stressed. Just to show you that stress affects the different systems in your body, and of course, it also affects your reproductive system. A significant percentage of people who have fertility issues, couples who are unable to have a child through unprotected regular sexual intercourse for over a year, they found out that just by teaching them how to relaxation techniques, just by doing that, they have found out that they significantly, it goes all the way from the top to the bottom, folks. Of course, let me just mention this. Skin, psoriasis, they found out overnight, by no means limited to just psoriasis cases, but psoriasis is a very, very distress and irritation of the skin due to inflammation. And they found out that 90% of it is either caused or influenced by stress. So you can see when people with stress problems. sorry, can't stay too long here, but again, get the tips. Okay, the MP3. Common causes of chronic stress. We're just going. These are obvious giveaways, deadlines, trying to meet deadlines at work, money concerns, traffic, family conflicts, irritating coworkers, bad stuff. Here's a book that I would recommend for people. It's a very small book. I have it right in front of me. It's very small, about $7. And what he does, Don Colbert does, is that he lists out from the most traumatic to the least traumatic, the various kinds of stress that people go through. And of course, the most traumatic could be the death of a spouse or child. That he places that at 100 points. Illness in family, sexual difficulties. He just lists them, and then he gets you to. I think it's worked out a formula to let you know how stressed you are, depending on what you pick and depending on your total. He now gives you he gives you a formula to just basically show you how stressed you are and what the prognosis is, what the probability of your developing an illness will be from your stress test, just based on that. So that's a good book just to look at, and just because if there are things going on in your life, there's a good chance that if you're not doing anything intelligent about it, there's a good chance it's affecting your body adversely. Again, the idea is always to have the knowledge. Always be in the know, so you know how best to keep your body healthy. Let's talk a little bit more about economic status. I had a few quotes from this book, and I think I'll show you the book in a minute. But research shows that in general, health improves with economic status, and you can easily think of reasons for that. Better nutrition, access to health care, better cars, less stress over finances, etc. People who have less money and less education have more social challenges in the form of unemployment, work injury, and lack of control. That's a big one, lack of control over the environment. They report fewer social supports, and they more often have a cynical or fatalistic outlook, so it affects your attitude as well. People at the lower end of the socio-economic scale are more likely to engage not just in smoking, but in a wide array of other risky factors or behaviors, and they are less likely to engage in health-promoting behaviors. And again, the reason for that is that lower economic status, you're more stressed. That affects your judgments, your decision-making. It can get to you, and therefore you won't be able to have the willpower to choose a consistent way of consistent healthy lifestyle. Because let's face it, folks, living a healthy lifestyle is not a cakewalk. It takes some determination to do.
Well, and like we've experienced, just the nutritional supplements and things you want to take. Quality nutritional supplements are not inexpensive.
Oh, no, not at all. Not at all. Many times you have to sacrifice just to have those. And I, for instance, I sacrifice many times just to have the nutritional supplements I know I need, because I know I have to have them. All right, here's another one. I just put this up, and it's a long one, but bottom line again is that we were designed to work. We were designed to work, to be active, to do stuff, to do things. Whether you're young or you're old, you have to work. And that's why many times people who retire and do nothing, they end up, some of them could even pass away in a short time afterwards, because their minds are not active. And when your mind isn't active, your body will follow as well. There's a saying that says depression first of all maims the mind, then it kills the body. Once your mind is paralyzed, your body follows after. And anyway, let me read it out. The idleness is the bane of the body and mind, and the nurse of naughtiness, the chief author of all mischief, one of the seven deadly sins, the cushion upon which the devil chiefly reposes. Boy. And the great cause not only of melancholy, but of many other diseases. For the mind is naturally active, and if it be not occupied about some honest business, it rushes into mischief or sinks into melancholy. It is called the cradle of disease. We understand that. Idleness is a constant sin, and labor is a duty. Idleness is the devil's home for temptation and unprofitable distracting musings. while labor profits others and ourselves. Bottom line, that helps us work helps to heal. It helps us, especially a work that is meaningful, work that engages your mind, engages your core strengths, that it has a wonderful rejuvenating effect on your body. All right, we've talked about work. Let's talk about social connection. Now, we mentioned that last time, so we're just going to basically breeze through this. We cannot live only for ourselves. 1,000 fibers connect us with our fellow man, and along these fibers, as sympathetic threads, our actions run as causes, and they come back to us as effects.
That's a really good quote. That is certainly one to stop and think about.
I think so too. One of the things that I've become very interested in is how we affect other people, even when we don't talk, even when we're not communicating orally the way you and I are communicating right now. It is a very interesting thing, folks, that, and people still call it all voodoo or black magic, but think about this. Let me give you an example. They found out, and this is neurologists have found out, if you put 3 girls, let's say college students in a room, they're all roommates, and they all have their different times in which they have their periods, their menstrual periods. What they found out is that after a period of time, maybe a couple of months, they found out that all 3 menstrual periods actually synchronize with one another, and they all happen on the same day.
I've heard that.
You've heard that, right?
I've experienced that.
Oh, you've experienced that. Okay. I mean, how do you explain that? Now, here's the other thing. Here's the interesting thing. The pattern is never random. What happens is that the other 2 synchronize with the most high energy person, or the most dominant or the most expressive person. It is never the other way around. There's always a fixed pattern to it. And this is interesting because I personally know 3 girls who are all around that age, between the ages of 21 and 25. They were all rooming together in a house. And I'm not making this up, folks. Their names were Ashley, Amy, and I've forgotten the last one's name. Her name started with an A too. All 3. So we call them the 3 A's. Anyway, finally I asked Ashley, and Ashley was the youngest, but she was also the most high energy person. And obviously they could tell me because obviously they trust me and I'm a doctor. But yes, indeed, Ashley was the most high energy person, and after a couple of months, that's exactly what happened. Amy and the other lady all synchronized, and they were all having their periods at the same time Ashley was having hers. So, folks, we influence each other, whether we know it or not. And this also comes to bear when you think about between a mother and a child. There are studies, and it actually plays out in real life. I know someone who is like that, who has experienced that. She was very stressed out about the family's financial situation, and she had a little child who was less than a year old. Well, over and over again, that child began to fall sick. And later on it was found out, because someone understands how these things work, that it was because the mother was going through that stress was transmitted to that little child, whose immune system was not well developed, as well as her mother's is. And so though her mother was able to cope with the stress, the baby could not, and therefore the baby fell ill. Wow. So we transmit stress to each other. We also transmit joy and gladness and happiness to each other. We are connected in ways that you would not believe. So it's the book.
Better or worse.
For better or for worse. It's a really good book, folks. It's called Loneliness, and the research there is fantastic. A few of the quotes I read out to you came from there. Now, the opposite end of the spectrum is this book is called Lethal Lovers and Poisonous People. It's one thing to stay away from people, and it's one thing to not to be too lonely. It's another thing to be hooked up or with the wrong kinds of people, because that on its own can cause stress to you as well. And here are some quotes that's from there. Research in psychoneuroimmunology shows that when people believe that life's problems are beyond their control, the stress hormone, cortisol, there you go again, increases in their bloodstream, thereby lowering the ability of their immune systems to effectively fight off bacterial and viral infections, and in severe cases, some forms of cancer. What quite literally can kill you or certainly make you vulnerable to a host of health problems is your negative reaction to what the other person says or does, or your negative reaction to your perception of the relationship. Basically, what this is saying is that it all comes down to your mind, what you're perceiving and how you're reacting to what you're perceiving. Let's say the husband goes out and stays out for longer than he should. Well, it could mean that he was late, he had a deadline to meet, or it could mean that he's doing something nasty. He's playing some hanky-panky. Whichever the wife chooses to believe, that is what will either cause stress in her system, or it will not cause stress in her system. And that's just an obvious example, but there are several examples. It comes down to your mind. And therefore, it is important, and we're going to come to the solutions in a while, in a little bit. In the final analysis, it is how strong you are on the inside that will affect your susceptibility or otherwise to stress. Very important.
That is good. And if you guys, I'm not sure how many people noticed this, I copied and pasted that last quote that was really good, the one from the 19th century preacher. I copied and pasted that into everybody's question box. So if you want to copy and paste that into a Word document and print it out and post it somewhere, you can.
Great, thanks. So let's just revisit that definition of stress. It is what you feel, so it's a subjective thing, when life demands exceed your ability to meet those demands. Okay? When you feel when life demands exceed your ability to meet those demands. So the solution has to lie in increasing your ability to meet the demands, and also increasing your ability to, here it is right here, to perceive accurately and not fly off the handle and not over-exaggerate and not think this is overwhelming. So it comes down to both your ability to meet those demands and also your ability to perceive accurately. Can we see that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And it comes down to one word: control. And this is really not about a machismo kind of thing. We're not talking about controlling other people. We're talking about having that sense that this is not too much. I can handle this with God's help, with my family's help, with the right tools, with the right knowledge. We can affect it. Because, folks, we human beings are designed. We are made to desire, and really to desire that things are not beyond our control. That's probably not the best way to put it, but we function best when we are in a certain level of peace that things will go well, things will be okay.
When you don't feel like you're a victim.
Exactly. So you don't feel like that you're a victim. And so control, having some sense of control over what is going on and not feeling overwhelmed, that is so, so important. And so if we're to find control, if we're to find strength, then we must start where we've always started, knowledge. A wise man has great power, and a man of knowledge increases strength. So knowledge is what will help us to develop the strength and the control. And the knowledge has to also include the fact that your body is going to work with you and for you if you give it the right tools. If you give it the right tools, the right information, the right nutrients, the right exercise, the right circumstances, it will turn around and overcome strength. And so therefore, we must build strength. And I have this picture here, these two mountains. to show you just the difference between the two. On the right side, we call it the problem focus, which is what the whole medical establishment is based on. We're based on if there's a problem, if there's a symptom, which we would call the mountain. If there's a disease, let's say stress, for instance. If there's stress, well, what we want to do is that we want to deal with the mountain. We want to deal with the stress. But I'm suggesting that we focus on the body. We focus on what are the root causes of that stress. And again, if you go back in the webinar, we've explained that there are several different root causes of stress, which will all manifest in one way, increased level of cortisol. So bottom line is to help correct the root problems, and therefore, when that happens, then this will also be taken care of. The problem will also be taken care of. But most times, they just attack this, and many times it's collateral damage, which also diminishes your health on this side too. And let me just show you a picture. This is what we want. We want to give our health, give our bodies good stuff. See that dumbbell, the carrot? Oh boy, you see that didn't go right. They're supposed to, at the same time, was supposed to attack. There was supposed to be arrows attacking this next one. Anyway, it didn't work out. All right. I hope I passed. I hope the message was passed across. So focus on what you can do for your body. You leave your disease to the doctor. Let him take care of it. But there are things that your doctor cannot do for you, which you must do by yourself. You must do on your own. And the more knowledge you have, the better you're able to do it. I put these 5 main things that I feel that if we do right, or if we pay attention to, then and we begin to intelligently use the right words, correct our beliefs, instead of having a victim belief that you can have control and you believe that you can turn things around, be it financial problems, be it a separation problem, be it sickness in the house, in the home. If you believe that you can turn it around with help from wherever source, then your stress levels will reduce. If you think right, if the food you eat is right, and if you use your body is right, all these things will turn around for the better. I mean, the problems will turn around for the better. So, and that's why we do what we do with these webinars. It's to give you information, to give you that wisdom, to give you that intelligence, to empower you to be able to know what to do and how to do it. All right, here are some, again, there are so many, depending on the person, there are so many different things you can do, depending on what works for you. Some people love music, so playing music can relieve their minds of stress. By the way, research shows that music helps to develop both sides of the brain, especially if you're playing the music. Now, you can listen to music, but that's not almost the same thing as playing music. So people who can actually play music, or whether it's a stringed instrument or the violin or the keyboard or whatever it is, they find that strengthens both the left part of the brain and the right part of the brain. And remember, anything that strengthens your brain will help to reduce your stress. Take a dip in the hot tub, exercise, breathing techniques, laugh. That's right, I forgot that part. I had it written somewhere, but I forgot to add it. Laugh.
That's my favorite.
Yeah, you're good at that. You're never stressed. I don't think you. I never known you to be stressed, Jerry.
Well, we'll discuss that later.
Right. Okay. Now, here's a part that men are notoriously bad at: seeking social support. You find that women, when they're stressed out, and this also brings our hormones and our anatomy and physiology into play. Women are built differently from men, and women are more, because the higher levels of estrogen. Estrogen has a way of developing the left side of your brain, and then the left side is where the speech centers are and the expressive centers are. So obviously, that is one of the reasons why women talk a lot more than men do. But just talking, and even if it's just idle nonsense, just being around friends and who can share your pains and who can chat and talk to you, and you can talk back to them, that helps to relieve stress. Men actually don't do that much. They probably just go to the bar and drink their troubles away, or watch TV, veg out in front of the TV and watch sporting games and all that. But women are a lot better at that, and so their levels of stress are less in general than men, which is another reason why men, for every woman that actually, every lady or girl or woman that commits suicide, there are 4 men who do the same thing.
Wow. And I can quote you. I have witnesses that you said that the idle nonsense chatter does have some value. I've got it recorded now.
Oh no, I shouldn't have said that. All right. Well, if all else fails, women can go shopping. Yeah.
Oh, girl.
Shopping. There you go. And again, I've mentioned this book before, Why Men Die First. Dr. Legato did an excellent job on really explaining the differences between men and women and why men are more prone to pass away. There's so much he puts into this, including the hormonal differences, the neurological differences, just their lifestyles. Men obviously take a lot more risks than women do. But even then, even she talks about how her father too was a very reticent person. He wasn't used to expressing himself, and she knew that was one of the reasons why he was a successful doctor. But he just didn't know how to relax and have fun, and really communicate. And she knows that was one of the reasons why he died at a young age. So there's a lot that goes into that. All right, here are some more practical tips. When you're going to the hospital, if you're going to the hospital for any procedure, and let me just say this, always, if you're going to do anything that is potentially stressful, always load up with nutritional supplements. I'm just going to say that, okay? I mean, some people will argue with that, okay? That you are entitled to your own beliefs and opinions, but if you think about it, we mentioned hospitals now, there is a lot of different things that are going on with regards to drug-resistant bacteria, viruses, even just the procedure, be it a colostomy or just even being in the hospital can be a stressful event. So if you want to ensure that your body remains strong, well, I just think it makes sense to take some extra doses of nutritional supplements and there are stuff that help to destroy bacteria, and we were going to have someone at the end of the month come talk about that some more. But there is so much out there. Load up, in other words, before you have a stressful event, whether it's in the hospital or whether it's a strenuous exercise or whether you're going to visit the in-laws. That could be a stressful event on its own. So just intelligent action, pretty much, folks. Okay, show up. There you go. Okay. Oh, okay, wrong one. All right. Okay. But we've shown you a different variation of this picture, and this is probably the first time I'm sure we're showing this. But usually the one we show is how the nervous system affecting the endocrine system, affecting the immune system, affecting the body cells. But there's also what is known as the autonomic nervous system, which branch comes out from your spinal cord and affects the different organs in your body. Where the chiropractic becomes very, very important, and I mentioned this earlier on, because when I was stressed, I mean, she was telling me how that because of the stress and because of the position of my bones, the bones in my spine, especially the neck, that it was actually compressing the nerves that were coming out of my out of the spinal cord, and that was obviously causing depression. Again, she did not know that I was going through anything, but she could tell just by the position of the nerves. And another thing she told me is that 80% of all her patients actually also have digestive problems, constipation specifically. Most of the patients presented with constipation, and when she adjusted them in their spines throughout the entire length of the spine, she found out the common thing was that constipation was relieved. Mm. So there's a lot that goes into the nervous system and the spine, and I think we don't give chiropractors enough credit for what they do. I think they do a considerable amount of stuff to help your body heal muscles, that will help your organs work better. There's a direct connection between the organs, be they the liver or the heart and the spinal cord. And if there's a problem in the organ, it's going to affect the spinal cord, and vice versa. If there's a problem in the nerve roots coming out of the spinal cord, it's going to affect the organs as well. So it's just so important to help to make sure that the nerve roots and the nerves that are coming out of the spinal cord they are unimpinged, unhindered, and they are not impinged on by bones and muscles. And there, of course, is the skeleton that we're talking about, and of course, chiropractors work on the spine. Another thing I want to mention too, and these are all practical tips. We're talking about what you need to do with your body. Movement is so important. If there's one thing that affects all the systems in the body, we know stress affects all the systems in the body, but exercise on its own also affects all the systems in the body. It's in fact, some studies show that exercise can turn on 140 different genes in a beneficial way, in a good way. There are genes that are bad genes that are turned on, and there are good genes that can be turned on, and vice versa. Exercise turns on the good genes. And I can say this for myself too, because playing competitive racquetball like twice a week. I mean, I play with some really, really good players, and they're very competitive too. And just the whole thing of learning new shots and making decisions. The thing about racquetball is that because everybody's on the same, all in an enclosure, so the risk of hitting each other is high, and we sometimes hit each other with a ball or with a racket. I've had my left eardrum ruptured from someone hitting me with a ball right to my left ear. It just damaged my eardrum, and I still can't hear very well on that side. I mean, it's been 5 years now. But just playing racquetball, you're constantly making decisions. You're constantly making decisions about what shot to take, whether it's off the side wall or the back wall. You're moving around. You're thinking. You're using both sides of your brain, your left brain and your right brain. And remember, when you're learning new stuff, we mentioned the hippocampus. The hippocampus, which is where memory is stored and also where new brain cells are created, the hippocampus can be strengthened when you learn new things and when you exercise your body and learn new things. And so as I'm doing this, I'm learning racquetball, it also helps to strengthen my hippocampus. And we're going to talk about a few other things that also help to strengthen your hippocampus and other parts of your brain that are meant for healthy stuff. Again, to really be healthy and overcome stress, you must focus on the spiritual and the mental part, as well as the physical body, as well as building strength in the physical body. And we've kind of mentioned a few things that will help with the physical body. But let's go more to really what I think are even the more important aspects. Okay, social and emotional needs. A happy, peaceful mind. We can't overemphasize that. These are things that you need to start doing right now, so that if a stressful event happens, then it'll be easier for you to revert to doing these things. You don't want to wait until the catastrophe happens before you start to practice this, okay? So basically, these are the needs you have, and so you must begin to seek to address those needs. Back to the human brain. We've mentioned the hippocampus. Now, let me just give you a few more cute things that you might want to leave with. Down here is the structure of the brain, and remember, the brain has about 20 different organs, all combined to form the human brain. This structure here is called the amygdala. Amygdala. No, this is not a word from Star Wars. This is a part of the brain. They probably got it from here, from the brain anatomy. The amygdala is where fear and anxiety reside. People who are stressed out, people who are always very fearful, and I think, even people who have hot tempers. The brain research shows that there is an inordinately high activity of this organ here, even in the resting state. And that's because they've exercised it, they've given their emotions free rein. They haven't sought to curb the expression of their rage and their tempers like they should, and therefore this organ has grown out of control, and they found out it's actually larger in such people. Okay? We do not want that. We want to curb the activity of this organ. by, again, we mentioned things like meditation, social support, discipline, and all these other things can help to reduce the activities. But let's focus on the positive. Let's focus on building strength. So again, the hippocampus is where nervous tissue is built by learning new things, by things like traveling. I think I have a list in the next slide. Things like traveling and learning new things, they help to rebuild your hippocampus. Also, there's a part of the brain called the prefrontal cortex. This is the frontal cortex is like this over here, but the prefrontal cortex is somewhere up here. The prefrontal cortex, this is the part that is the last part of the brain to develop, and it develops in your mid-20s. That's why teenagers do stupid things, because their judgment hasn't been fully developed yet. They have the looks of a grown-up, but the mentality hasn't caught up yet. The prefrontal cortex is where executive judgment is, where maturity resides, where you are able to make good decisions. If we can help to strengthen that part, and of course wisdom and knowledge, exercising the wisdom and knowledge and character development will help to strengthen the prefrontal cortex. It's specifically the left prefrontal cortex that is very, very important for good feelings, this altruistic attitude towards the people of the world. That happens in the good feelings happen more in the left prefrontal cortex, but let's not talk about that too much. We don't want to go into that too much. But so strengthening your brain, we mentioned meditation. This could be whether yoga. I mean, the kind of meditation I do is I focus on this particular scripture in the Bible, and I read it over and over again. I think to myself, and I just imagine how it would work in my life. So there are different kinds of meditations. Learning new things, reading, strengthening close relationships, practicing forgiveness and gratitude, becoming involved in the work that is in line with what you love to do. We can't overemphasize that. All right. We've spoken about the body. We've spoken about the mind. And now let's speak about what I consider the most important aspects, because according to Winston Churchill, men are spirits and not animals. The thing that separates us from every other creature out there is the fact that we have that spiritual part that no other animal or being has on this earth. And the needs of that spiritual as part of who we are will play, whether or not those needs are met will determine to a very large extent not just our usefulness on this earth, but also our health. And Sherry mentioned that having one's life have a meaning and purpose is very, very important. And this is a good book, A Whole New Mind, a very, very interesting book. And Daniel Pink, the author, focuses on the right brain, which is the right side of the brain, which is responsible for. They're finding out that's the part that is more artistic, and they think that that's the part that deals also with the spiritual part of who we are. There's a connection with that's not with the spiritual part of the body that is not fully understood yet. But here's what he says: there is a growing recognition that spirituality, not religion necessarily, but the more broadly defined concern for the meaning and purpose of life, is a fundamental part of the human condition. And he goes on to say that the awareness of that concern and meaning for life is to be found in the right part of the brain. By strengthening your spiritual part, by strengthening your spiritual faculty, we find that people who do so are more likely to find out what their purpose in life is and more likely to walk in it. In the final analysis, the best protection against harmful stress lies in discovering and walking in your purpose for being here. This draws to you the true friendships that you need, and I can testify to this. I mean, Sherry and I are really good friends now, and what drew us together was the fact that we had similar purposes, we had similar interests that we wanted to do, and through amazing circumstances we were brought together. This draws to you the true friendships, connections, and finances. It keeps you challenged. We're still working on the financial part, but it keeps you challenged. It puts you in a good frame of mind so you can pursue healthy habits, and it keeps your brain young and active. So true. And here are some activities that you can do to help strengthen that spiritual part. There is research that is being done right now at one of the Ivy League universities. I think Duke University is an Ivy League university, I think. But Duke University, they're doing major research on spirituality, and the head of the Center for Spiritual Development there is a man called, you can't say this too well, but his name is Harold G. Koenig, MD. And he wrote a book that won an award, and it's called the John Templeton Award. That's what he won. And it's called The Healing Connection. And what they've been doing now is they've been studying people who have a religious bent, who kind of go to church, who pray, who read scriptures. And what they are coming up with is they're really finding out that the health of the person can be improved by engaging in spiritual activities. This is no longer just a faith thing. They are now beginning to actually prove this scientifically, and that's a really good book.
He would be a good webinar guest.
I've been thinking about him, too.
So if anybody has his phone number, please email it to us.
Yes, please. Actually, I called him when I wrote my book. I actually called his office and left a message asking him for his permission to include his quote in my book, and he called back and said it was fine, that I could do it. But he left a message, and we never really got to talk, so I probably need to find out if he's still there and contact him again.
That'd be great.
Yeah, really good stuff. Okay, Our Fundamental Drive, this is another good quote that is very, very important. And this brings us to the end, and again, it's all about focusing on the spirit, the mind, and the body, strengthening all three. That is in the final analysis, your protection against stress.
And your responsibility.
And your responsibility, right. Questions?
Well, there haven't been too many questions coming in. What you were sharing was pretty straightforward. So if anybody has any questions they would like to ask, please type them into the question box. And while you're taking a minute to do that, while David was wrapping up the webinar, I really liked that quote about a connected world. So I really was paying attention, but in the background I was also making a Word document that had it on there. And as soon as the webinar is over, I'm going to email it to all of you who were here, who attended, just a one-page document with that quote on it, so you can print it out and keep it somewhere, because it was really good.
Yeah, it is cool, isn't it?
Okay, let's see. It says, please put the next to the last slide up about finding your bliss.
Okay. Hey, I see some people asking questions about the timing again. What went wrong with the timing?
We apologize for all of our Australian friends, because we switched to daylight savings time on Sunday. And I completely forgot that the whole world does not switch to daylight savings time. So the email notifications that we sent out had some of the wrong times on it.
Oh, well, sorry, folks. Sorry about that.
I apologize for that. So, not seeing many questions, so maybe we can just wrap it up tonight.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks for hanging in with us, folks, and be sure to be here next week. There are going to be two great webinars next week. So log in, and we'll try and correct the timings for you guys in Australia. All right. God bless, and have a great weekend.
Good night.
Good night.